Thank you, Mark, and a big hello from London. A feast of weekly technical patterns last week, plus all the monthly patterns seen in July. All this coming after we just had the one single pattern last week. So you'll notice a theme in some of these, particularly in the currency pairings, and that was a weakness in the US dollar, though not in all. Some had some special situations, and I will deal with those shortly. But first, we had weekly key reversals down last week, starting in the US dollar index, then in US dollar Canadian dollar, US dollar Norwegian krona, US dollar Danish krona, US dollar Romanian leu, US dollar Taiwanese dollar, US dollar Singapore dollar, and in the US dollar Macedonian dinar. Similarly, moves for dollar weakness came with weekly key reversals up in the Aussie dollar against the US dollar, the euro against the US dollar, and in the Kiwi against the US dollar, though only just in this last one. In all these, most had either small follow-on moves weaker in the dollar this week, or they went sideways. The exceptions were US dollar Canadian dollar, US dollar Norwegian krona, and of course the weakest, the Kiwi dollar against the US dollar. Additionally, some currency pairings showed dollar strength with weekly key reversals up last week, and they were the US dollar Russian ruble and the US dollar Israeli shekel. This week, the US dollar Russian ruble had a suitable follow-on higher, but the US dollar Israeli shekel had a reactionary move back down. Outside the main US dollar based pairings, we also had weekly key reversal down last week in the euro against the Japanese yen, which, given what has been happening in the Japanese yen, had an appropriate follow-on lower move on Monday, but has since pulled back a bit. Plus, we had weekly key reversals up in Japanese yen against the Chinese yuan and the euro against the Romanian leu. The Japanese yen against the Chinese yuan also had an appropriate follow-on higher for the same reason that Japanese yen had a follow-on lower. Meanwhile, euro against the Romanian leu had a small follow-on higher, which was interesting. Okay, so that covers the currencies. What else did we have? Well, in the financials, we had a weekly key reversal down last week in the Saudi TDW main index, whilst at the same time we had a weekly key reversal up last week in the Hermes index in Egypt. The Saudi index this week had a strong reactionary move back up, pushing above last week's high, whilst the Egyptian index had a similar move upwards, up to new highs, but this time it was a follow-on move higher and not a reactionary move. Moving on to the commodities, and we had weekly key reversals up last week in all these futures contracts. In FCOJ in New York, frozen concentrated orange juice in New York. In the SGX SICOM TSR20 rubber in Singapore. In the EX German power base month, this on the continuous charts. And in Chicago live cattle, plus the Brent crude oil index. On these, FCOJ futures had a follow-on higher, and Chicago live cattle futures are holding around Friday's close, but all the others, well, they had reactionary moves back down to varying degrees. That covers the weekly technical patterns. Now let's look at the monthly technical patterns for July and what they showed. So we had monthly key reversals down in euro against the Japanese yen and in US dollar Japanese yen, which is no surprise. Though I would refer you to my daily FX commentaries on US dollar Japanese yen, as there is the beginning of a longer term pattern building here. We also had monthly key reversals down in the US dollar CNY, the Chinese yuan, 1 year NDF, as well as an interesting one in Aussie dollar against the US dollar. You see, in Aussie dollar US dollar, it was a compound monthly key reversal down. This is where July's monthly key reversal down covered all of the earlier monthly key reversal down seen in June, a rare pattern. Finally, we had a monthly key reversals up in sterling against the South African rand and in the Baltic Dirty Tanker Shipping Index. All these are all long-term patterns. It's not appropriate or valuable, I think, to just look at the 2 days worth of action after their formation to try and gauge their success or rejection. But I would urge you to keep an eye open on these monthly patterns for the future. As always, I'm happy to answer any direct questions with anyone who's interested. And with that, I'll finish this section from London, and hope you found these comments useful. Thank you for watching and listening. This weekly broadcast gives the essential market patterns and consequences. Please be aware of the risk disclaimer posted both at the front and at the back of this broadcast. Copyright is Eddie Tofpick and ADM Investor Services International Limited. And here comes the final important bit.